Just sign the papers, Zoe, and we can all move past this little family misunderstanding, my father said, pushing the thick document packet across the mahogany desk. His voice carried that familiar, arrogant authority that used to make me shrink. Beside him, my sister sat with a smug, self-satisfied grin, already looking at me as if I were nothing more than an annoying obstacle in her path to a multi-million-dollar inheritance. They thought they had backed me into a corner. They thought 5 years of cruel silence, skipping my major milestones, and treating me like an outcast had broken my spirit. My father's high-priced corporate lawyer gestured with his gold pen, eager to finalize my total surrender. But the second my eyes scanned the actual legal text hidden on page 4, the tense silence in the room shattered. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I burst into uncontrollable laughter. My name is Zoe Campbell. I am 36 years old. And up until this very moment, my family treated me like I was completely invisible. 5 years ago, I made the painful decision to cut them off entirely, going completely no contact after a string of unforgivable humiliations. The final straw was when my parents completely skipped my hard-earned college graduation. Their excuse? They just couldn't miss my golden child sister's lavish birthday party for her dog. When I confronted them, my father coldly told me that I had married down by choosing a simple, honest mechanic, claiming I was an embarrassment to their elite social status. For half a decade, I built a modest, deeply happy life with my husband, completely free from their toxic manipulation and endless mind games. I thought I was finally safe from their cruelty. But before we get to the shocking reason they suddenly tracked me down, I have to ask you, have you ever had to cut off toxic family members for your own peace of mind? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. The fragile peace I had built over those 5 years was shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end instantly put me on edge. It was Arthur Vance, my father's elite corporate attorney, a man who charged more per hour than my husband made in a week. His tone wasn't patronizing, though. It was strangely urgent, almost frantic. He told me that my presence was legally mandatory at a high-stakes family meeting the following morning. When I asked why, he hesitated, his voice dropping to a low whisper as he muttered something about an unresolvable block in the family's massive estate and business assets. He refused to give me any more details over the phone, practically begging me to just show up. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, my mind racing with anxiety. Part of me wanted to ignore the summons completely, to stay safe inside the quiet, honest life I had built. But another part of me, a part that had grown much stronger over the last 5 years, refused to keep running away out of fear. The next morning, I braced myself and walked into the polished, intimidating corporate law office downtown. As I stepped out of the elevator, I noticed Arthur Vance waiting for me in the hallway. He looked completely disheveled. His tie was slightly crooked, and he kept nervously wiping sweat from his forehead. When he looked at me, there was no arrogance in his eyes, only a deep, desperate panic. He whispered that I needed to be careful inside, dropping subtle, rushed clues that leaked just how terrified my father was about a sudden glitch in their wealth. Something was terribly wrong behind their perfect facade. Vance opened the heavy double doors and I walked into the main conference room. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Sitting across from me was my father, looking every bit the ruthless corporate tyrant I remembered, and my sister, Victoria. The moment my feet crossed the threshold, Victoria looked me up and down, a smug sneer spreading across her face. She was draped in a brand new designer trench coat, casually twisting a massive diamond ring on her finger. She didn't hesitate to break the silence, openly mocking my simple jeans and fading jacket, whispering just loud enough for the room to hear that some people clearly never learned how to look successful. I ignored her, pulling out a chair and sitting down directly opposite my father. He didn't waste time with a greeting. He didn't ask how I had been for the last 5 years, or even acknowledge the massive void his absence had left in my life. Instead, he slammed the thick stack of legal paperwork onto the polished mahogany table with enough force to echo through the room. "Just sign it, Zoe," he demanded, his voice dropping into that low, threatening growl he used whenever he wanted to crush someone's confidence. He explained that they were in the middle of finalizing a massive, multi-million-dollar corporate merger that would secure the family fortune for generations. He claimed my signature was a mere formality, a simple waiver to clear up some outdated minor claims to the estate that were clogging up the legal paperwork. But when I didn't immediately reach for the gold pen Vance offered, my father's patience completely dissolved. He leaned across the table, his eyes narrowing into cold slits. He told me that if I chose to be difficult, he would personally ensure my husband's mechanic shop was ruined by morning, using his political and financial connections to pull their commercial lease. It was a brutal, desperate ultimatum. The heavy silence in the room pressed down on me, but I refused to let them see me sweat. My father's threat against my husband's business burned in my chest, but instead of panicking, it made me hyper-focused. I pulled the thick document packet toward me, ignoring the intense, burning glares coming from both my father and Victoria. "I don't sign anything without reading it first," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the adrenaline pouring through my veins. Victoria let out an exaggerated, deeply annoyed sigh, dramatically rolling her eyes and tapping her expensive designer nails against the table. My father leaned back in his leather chair, crossing his arms with a confident smirk, completely convinced that I was too uneducated in corporate law to understand a single word on the pages. I blocked out their sighs, their shifting, and their desperate pressure tactics. I slowly flipped through the dry, clinical legal jargon, reading every paragraph line by line. Pages 1, 2, and 3 were exactly what they claimed, a sweeping waiver meant to strip away my inheritance rights. But as my eyes reached the hidden, complex clauses tucked away on page 4, my heart skipped a beat, and the air froze in my lungs. I had to read the paragraph 3 times just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. My father and sister had been so blinded by their own greed and rush to finalize the merger that they had completely misread the original trust framework left behind by our late grandfather. The document they were desperately forcing me to sign did not strip me of my rights. Because of a strict anti-fraud clause triggered by Victoria's recent hidden credit scandals, this exact signature page did something entirely different. It legally activated an automatic clause that transferred the controlling shares of the entire family empire directly to me. The second the true meaning of that paragraph sank in, the heavy, suffocating tension inside my chest completely evaporated. I didn't cry, and I didn't scream at them for their cruel threats. Instead, I burst into loud, hysterical, and completely uncontrollable laughter. The sound echoed off the glass walls of the conference room, completely shattering the strict corporate silence. My father's confident smirk instantly vanished, replaced by a look of sheer bewilderment. Victoria stopped tapping her nails, staring at me as if I had completely lost my mind. "What is wrong with you?" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. I couldn't even answer her. I just pointed at page 4, tears of laughter streaming down my face. Arthur Vance, looking like he was about to faint, snatched the document back from my hands. His eyes flew across the lines, and within 3 seconds, every ounce of color drained from his face. His hands began to shake so violently that he dropped his gold pen onto the table. He turned incredibly pale, looking over at my father with absolute horror in his eyes. The smug, self-satisfied grins were completely wiped from my family's faces as a suffocating panic set in. They realized something was terribly wrong, but they still didn't understand the trap they had built for themselves. Before I reveal the exact moment I turn the tables on them, I want to know, where are you watching from today? Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far our story has reached. I picked up the gold pen from the table, my laughter fading into a cold, confident smile. With a swift, deliberate motion, I firmly signed my name at the bottom of page 4, officially locking in my absolute control over the entire family fortune and all of their corporate properties. I slid the paperwork back across the mahogany desk, looking directly into my father's trembling, pale face and Victoria's wide, terrified eyes. "You wanted my signature to fix your little problem," I said, my voice cutting through the room like ice. "Well, you got it. But you should have hired a better lawyer." I calmly explained the reality of the document to them. By trying to bully and threaten me into a corner, they had legally handed me the keys to everything they owned. Victoria gasped, grabbing her father's arm as the devastating truth finally set in. The power dynamic in the room had completely flipped. I leaned forward, giving them an ultimatum of my own. They were to leave this office immediately, drop every single threat against my husband's business, and cooperate quietly with my new management, or I would have them legally evicted from the company-owned luxury properties by tomorrow morning. 3 months later, my life looked completely different. I used my newfound legal leverage to permanently protect my husband's mechanic shop, expanding it into a thriving, state-of-the-art business that he had always dreamed of owning. I also diverted a massive portion of the family's corporate wealth away from vanity projects and funded local community programs that helped families in need. Meanwhile, my father and Victoria were forced to learn the meaning of humility, living on modest, restricted allowances under my strict corporate supervision. They could no longer use their wealth to destroy others. Greed completely blinded them, and in their rush to push me down, they accidentally lifted me up. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have given them a second chance? Or would you have walked away with everything? Comment below and let me know. And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the very end.